anything of theirs, and I'll be fine, because that's, to me, represents the music of the angels. morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Connection. We will begin today with our prayer of surrender. And I realized when I was looking back last week that I totally omitted a line because I wasn't reading it. I didn't talk about awakening. So we're going to remember to put that line in today. All right, here we go. Spirit of truth, carry me where you will. Bring to me what you will. Take from me what you will. Awaken in me what you will. The Christ man is around me. The Christ mind is in me. The Christ power flows through me. And the Christ mystery exists as me. I believe it. I perceive it. And now I receive it. I am surrendered. Amen. And so it is. Okay. So I'm actually going to read the devotion this morning from the book, which I don't usually do, but I'm going to do that today. So if you have the affirmation, here we go. Today, I understand that thinking only of how an action will affect me can lead to unintended consequences. So the title of this devotion is Look Before You Leap. And all of us have probably heard that old aphorism, but I'm going to put a little bit different spin on it. The text says, the phrase, I am living my truth, has gotten a bad rap in some ways because people have misused and abused it. That reminds me of a meme I saw the other day. It said, I used to be a people person, but people ruined it. So living your truth is a good concept, except when people misuse and abuse it. They have used the concept of their truth to justify behaving in any manner they want. But it's not a free pass to say and do whatever you want, when you want, when what you want shows no regard for the feelings of others. For example, it is indeed a good thing to set personal boundaries. We've talked about this before because that's protection. But so many people use this as an excuse to just not cooperate with others or to get out of something that is actually their responsibility because they don't feel like doing it. When people misuse the concept in this way, there are always what is known as unintended consequences, negative circumstances that your behavior caused even though you didn't intend for it to. If you find that living your truth is creating a lot of these, then maybe it's time to take a look and make some adjustments. The first thing to do is to follow the old axiom, look before you leap. Now, here's the twist. Traditionally, the purpose of this was so that you wouldn't land on anything that would harm you. But a deeper, more mature and evolved meaning is to make sure you don't land on anyone else and hurt them in the process of living your truth. Unintended consequences will happen less frequently when you live your life consciously and become more aware of the decisions you make. All right, I do not have much to add to that today. It's pretty self-explanatory, so let's just go to the ending prayer. Considerate God, help me to strike an appropriate balance between setting personal boundaries and caring for others so that no unintended consequences occur as a result of my behavior. Amen. Amen. So, now we'll say our connection affirmation. I allow perfect health in my body, perfect peace in my mind, perfect unconditional love in my heart, and the perfect divine timing of spirit to guide my life in thought, word, and deed. Amen. We're going to begin with a short review of what we talked about last week because it flows nicely into the topic we're going to talk about today. Plus, it was really powerful, I think, and the part we're going to review is the stabilizing statements, which are actually meant to be repeated often. So, if you'll remember, we talked about a woman named Eileen McCusick and the work she has done with tuning forks, using them as a type of sound healing. And her premise is that we have a magnetic field, an electromagnetic field that surrounds our body. And that's part of an electrical system that actually runs through our bodies on the inside as well. I always have trouble with this word, powering it, as it were, all the many other systems that help our body function appropriately. And through her work, she's discovered that we are in the best physical health when this electrical system, which includes what's on the inside as well as the magnetic field that's all around us on the outside, is in balance in terms of our left and right sides. She talks about our left side representing our more feminine characteristics and energy, or the yin, if you follow anything Chinese philosophy, and our right side represents our masculine traits, or the yang energy that we all have. When these two sides come together in perfect balance down the midline of our body, we are the healthiest we can be. And she claims to be able to use her tuning forks to help tune human bodies just like you would tune a musical instrument. So I'm going to repeat all of the stabilizing statements that she created that we learned about last week in order, starting at the feet and coming all the way up through the crown chakra. Okay, here they are. There's one statement. Remember, this is the format. There's one statement from the left, then another from the right, and then when they merge to create that midline statement of what results when these two characteristics are both present and equal. All right, so for the feet, I am free, I am stable, I dance. So when we're free, we're also stable, we can dance through our lives. Next is the knees. I have containment, like the banks of a river. I am fluid, like the river itself, so I flow. Then up to our root chakra, or our sacral area. I work, I play, yay. Moving on to the solar plexus, I am nourished and supported on our left side, or mothered. I am protected or fathered on our right side. I radiate. So remember last week she used the example of happy children. When you see happy children with radiant faces, it is because they have been properly mothered or nourished and supported and fathered, protected and disciplined. Okay, now the hips. My needs are met. I am plenty. I create. So when our cup is full, when we when we know that all our needs are met and that we have plenty, that it's an ever continual flow, then we can create. So when my cup is full, I am free to pour from it and fill your cup, and as well as anybody else's, and create whatever I want. Now the heart. I give, I receive, I love. If you're doing too much of either of these, you are out of balance. Up to the throat. I express and I am heard. Therefore, I rejoice. So you're not stifling the things you want to say. You're saying them, you're expressing, and you're not arguing. People are actually hearing you. So when those things are in balance, then you rejoice. Then the third eye. I trust my future self to handle whatever comes tomorrow. So I won't worry about that today, the future. Then the other side is all is well. Everything that has happened in the past served me. So knowing those two things, I see and envision the present moment clearly. And lastly, the crown, with the culminating statement that is just a single statement because there is no duality in the crown chakra, which represents our connection to our higher self. Ideally, there is no separation between us and our higher self. There's no left and there's no right. It's all one. So the statement is, my will is one with God's will. So there are the statements again that will help us to balance and stabilize our energy so that we have and can keep a good flow going from our oneness with the will of God all the way down, being able to dance through life when it gets to our feet. So Speaking of our electromagnetic field, okay, and the electrical system that is also within our body, several years back, I did a teaching called Demagnetize Yourself, where we talked about all these little hooks that are inside us that catch and latch on to things just like magnets do and trigger us. They usually either make us angry or they hurt our feelings, although flattery, especially false flattery from others, is also something we can get hooked onto. But today we're just going to focus on those things, those negative hooks. But for the most part, we think of triggers as negative things. And the teaching from last week made me think about this teaching because it also had to do with magnets and what we draw to us, especially when she was talking about the electrical system that's inside our body being connected to the outer magnetic field. This idea of us having hooks inside us is based on the same idea. So we're going to revisit that concept today as a follow-up and as an added layer to last week's teaching, and I think it will create a nice flow. We're going to begin with some quotes. Number one, this is from a man named Kyle Cease, who I will also quote from a little bit later on in the teaching. He says, "Your stress is the argument with what you know you need to do." All right, so if you realize what you need to do and you do it, there's no stress. The stress comes in when you know you need to do something and your mind is fighting with your intuition saying, no, don't do it. So that's when we get into stress. This next one is really beautiful. It's by a woman named Stephanie Bennett Henry. "I see you on the days you move mountains. I see you on the days you don't get out of bed. Whichever day it is today, you are beautiful, strong, and brave. I just wanted you to know." Okay, so sometimes it takes as much bravery just to get out of bed as it does to do some really courageous things. The next one is from Thich Nhat Hanh. "If you are filled with anger, you create more suffering for yourself than for the other person. So try to bring peace to yourself first. When you are calm, when you are lucid, you will see that the other person is a victim of confusion, of hate, of violence, transmitted by society, by parents, by friends, by the environment. When you are able to see that, your anger is no longer there." So that's basically just putting yourself in the other person's shoes to see it from their perspective to kind of calm down your anger when you understand where they're coming from. All right, lastly, by Tony Carmine Salerno. "I release the need for power, control, or domination. I have no time or need for them. I am courageous in my desire to give love, to seek love, and to be love. I pursue peace relentlessly for myself and for the world. Together we are beautiful. We are at peace." Amen to that. I want to start the teaching with a statement that I heard someone say in a video where they were actually talking about ways to keep ourselves physically healthy, which is not going to be the main topic today, but it's a good starting premise. The statement is, "The germ is nothing. The terrain is everything." And by that, he meant the terrain of our body, how strong our immune system is, and the relative level of our general health determines how our system will respond and handle any germ or pathogen. When some new virus or disease comes along, the medical and scientific communities spend a lot of time and energy on it, the thing itself that's coming at us from the outside. And that's their job. Things like that need to be studied. But there's another huge factor to be considered, and that is the environment that the germ or the virus or whatever it is encounters once it enters your body. We've all heard a lot about this, and that's been a big focus for the whole world in these last 4 years, studying and talking about the virus. And we've heard a lot of phrases that begin with people who have a compromised immune system. They talk a lot about that because it affects those people differently than people who are in better health. That's just another way to say what I talk about all the time, and that is everything in your life begins with you. It is all inside. So when an issue arises, even if it is seemingly coming at you from the outside, that's not where you need to deal with it, okay? You've got to go within and look inside yourself. Because that's the only place where you're going to find a solution to what is coming at you from the outside. Okay. We're going to talk today about how to demagnetize ourselves, because all of us have what Kyle Cease, who I'm going to read from in just a second, calls these little hooks inside us that are like magnets, attracting certain people and certain situations into our lives according to what frequency we're tuned into, what level of vibration we're living on. So before we go to Kyle, I want to talk for a minute about that. And to do so, I'm going to talk about cats. So to give you an example, a lot of our life, if not all of it, the quality of our lives is determined by whatever vibration we're living on. Now, as many of you know, our household has steadily been accumulating cats. We have 4 inside cats, 2 upstairs with mom and dad and me and Tony, and 2 downstairs with my son and daughter-in-law. And we used to have just 1 outdoor cat who would come and be fed every day. Her name is Momo. And now, somehow, word has spread in the cat world that the Paulk Diaz house is always good for a free feed. So there are 2 or 3 more outside cats that show up at various times and just sit in the backyard looking in the windows until one of us notices them and takes food out. Now, not one of these cats has ever come and sat outside our back door or by a window and gone away hungry. Every single one of them has been fed every single time. So you could say, and I'm going to because this is the point of my metaphor here, you could say we, my dad and I, the people that live in our house, we are God. We are the universe, okay? Sometimes my daughter-in-law. These cats live in an abundant universe where all they have to do is show up with their cute little cat face and they know they will be fed. We even bought a little outdoor house that's 2 levels where they can go inside and has a little deck where we put the food bowl. So they just show up, and sometimes they don't even have to ask. Most times, before they even come up to the door, one of us has seen them already and has headed out there to give them what they need. So we are God in this metaphor, and they are us, the humans. And they should all know this by now, especially Momo, because she's the one that's been there the longest, and we have never let her down. She has never one time come into our yard and not been fed. But yesterday, we had a little cat drama outside. Momo and one of the newer outdoor cats showed up at the same time. And there was a little scuffle over the food dish. So I took a second food dish out with more food and put it in a different part of the yard, about 20 feet away, for the other cat. And so, to this new cat's credit, he left the first bowl and went down to the other one like he was supposed to. So I walked back inside thinking all was well, problem solved. But no sooner had I gotten back inside, I looked out the window, and Momo, little spoiled brat, had gone down to the other bowl and to run the other cat off. So they weren't fighting, but she was, have you ever heard this term? She was bogarting the bowl. It's like she was eating in it and she was pushing him with her hip, like, get out of here. And so I came right back out and yelled at her. It's the first time I've ever raised my voice at her, and you could tell because she looked at me like, what? Because I'm usually really sweet with her. And I told her to get her little behind back up to the other bowl and stop being stingy. She needed to be a sweet girl and learn how to share and I assured her that there was plenty for both of them. And unbelievably, she did it. And I say unbelievably because cats are notoriously not obedient. So I go back inside again, look back out, and those 2 cats, instead of just enjoying the abundance I had provided for them, they both had a full bowl of food right in front of them, but what are they doing? They're staring at each other. not eating, just daring the other one to come toward them. Okay, they're just from 20 feet away. They're both in full attack mode, ready to pounce at any moment, each guarding their own bowl like it was the last meal they were ever going to eat, totally disregarding the fact that somewhere in the back of their tiny brain, I know they must know that there's more where that came from, because there always has been. We've never not fed them. So I hope you're getting my point. When we as humans live in that lower vibration, our animal level, just like the cats, when we live in that lower vibration of lack and scarcity and not enough, and constantly trying to defend our little territory, our little patch of ground, or our little pile of belongings, possessions, those things we call ours, then that always puts us in a defensive posture. We're always on high alert, nervous and afraid that someone's coming to take away our stuff, and we have to protect it, because even though history has shown us the contrary, because God has provided for us time after time after time, we don't believe that there's more where that came from, and we don't trust God to show up with a fresh bowl of food the next time we're hungry. Okay, so that's the end of the cat metaphor. I hope it was helpful. Now, on to what Kyle Cease has to say about our little inner hooks. He says, in old school spiritual teaching and self-help work, it's always about letting some external thing go. But that doesn't address whatever it is internally inside yourself that attracted that thing to you. In other words, it does you no good to let something go on the outside if something inside you is still magnetized to it. The trigger is always the thing that's inside you, not whatever the external thing on the outside is. And the codependency on that external thing is like a magnet inside you, keeping you stuck to it. Usually, when we want to make some kind of change in our lives, our focus is on the external environment. We start looking for things and influences outside ourselves that we can change or make adjustments to. Our physical environment, okay, he gives some examples. Our physical environment, our job, our relationships, our diet, our daily routine. We start focusing on all these things. But focusing on those things only distracts us from focusing on what's going on inside us. Once something in your external world triggers something or brings something up to the surface in you, let it go, but don't stop there. Then it's time to look at and deal with or heal whatever it is that brought it up and triggered inside you. Letting go of the actual external thing, whether it's a person or a situation or a belief, is only half the job. Okay, so remember from last week, both the left and the right have to be balanced. Okay, it's the same principle here. You have to deal with the outer, but more importantly, you also then have to go and deal with the inner, because only dealing with what's on the outside is only half the job. Here's an example, he says. When someone makes a statement that triggers you in some way, what most of us do is keep our focus on the person who said it, or even on the thing itself that was said, so that we never get to the root of what is inside us that caused us to react the way we did. The roots are inside of you. Focusing on the external thing is like looking at the top of a tree, trying to diagnose what's wrong with its roots. You have to actually take a look at the roots if you want to resolve the issue. Continuing to focus on the outer issue rather than getting to the root causes you to stay in an unhealed pain loop. And if you fail to take a look at the magnet that's inside of you, attracting these external situations to you, you'll just replace this bad external thing with another external thing that's equally bad, because the magnet is still there inside you, continuing to attract the same kind of energy. It will just be housed in a different person or circumstance the next time. All right, so remember, we always say nothing leaves you until it teaches you what you need to learn. Once more, as simply put as is possible, the triggers inside your body within your consciousness are magnets, and unless you deal with them at the root level within yourself, you'll just keep attracting certain similar circumstances and people. You can't make new moves if you're still living in your old patterns. Letting go of the external thing is not enough. It only exposes or brings attention to the thing on the inside that needs to be dealt with. Now, how do we do this? Step 1 is identifying the magnets and realizing that's what they are. They're not who you are. They're just learned behavioral patterns. Identification with the magnet, or believing it's who you are, is what keeps it in place, okay? This is what Eckhart Tolle teaches. So when you say things like, I have to get out of this situation, or I have to get over this person, who's the I? That's not really you. That's the magnet, okay, or the program. Now, I'm going to break from this piece by Kyle Cease briefly and give you a good example of what he's talking about by reading something I heard Andrew Martin say recently. So remember, we're talking about taking a look inside ourselves when we've been triggered rather than continuing to focus on the external. Andrew says, eventually, I realized that I was the only one still carrying my wound around. I would walk into a room, and if I saw a group of straight men, I immediately thought of them as the enemy. Immediately, my victim mentality would emerge, and I was like, okay, here comes the homophobia. Here comes the bullying. Here comes the ignorance and the bigotry, even if it wasn't in the room. I was the one bringing it into the room. I was the one activating where it didn't necessarily exist. So my question to you is, where are you still bringing your wound into the room and trying to make it everyone else's fault? That you feel triggered, that you feel unsafe. Of course you feel unsafe. You're still walking around in the mindset that people are out to get you, okay? Just like our little cats. You're still walking around in the mindset that everyone's a homophobe or a racist or a sexist. And I'm not saying that those things don't exist. What I'm saying is you have an opportunity in those situations to get really clear on where it is objectively actually happening and where you are subjectively still creating it because you haven't resolved your own stuff. So, wow, that takes a lot of courage to see that in yourself and admit that the things inside you are often just as much a part of the problem as what's coming at you from the outside. And back to what Kyle Cease is saying, those particular external things wouldn't come at you in the first place if there wasn't a magnet inside of you attracting them to you. Okay, so let's go back to Kyle now. The magnets inside you represent your small self, your lower self, and its story. The only way to clean them up is to really get in touch with your true, authentic, higher self, which contains and is made of, is connected to the all that is. All right, back to our stabilizing statements. My will is one with God's will. And when you start to get in touch with this self, here's what it won't look and sound like, okay? It won't be asking, what do I do? Now here he's about to tell us how to fix it. The small I doing something, taking some action is not the answer. Let me give you an example. All right? You wouldn't say, I have to make my heart beat now. Or it's time for me to make my hair grow. These things just happen naturally and are taken care of by our higher self, that part of us that is divine and that creates. But we don't necessarily do these things, okay? So let's think about the cats again. If they were connecting to their higher selves instead of their lower animal nature, then they wouldn't ever worry about food again, okay? They would just trust that they are living in an abundant universe and what has always been true for them will continue being true for them, and that a constant supply of food will always be available because the universe is beneficial and that is the nature of God. All right, so So then he continues, why do you think you, as in your small self, are responsible for your own healing? Is that the one thing you've decided God's not in charge of and needs your ego's help with? Okay. Because thinking you, again, as your small self can do it, is your ego. The ego is constantly looking for problems to overcome. That's what keeps it, and the magnets, by the way, alive. It creates a problem that it can then go in and do something to solve so it can look and feel like the hero. The ego never needs or wants God's help. So I kind of think about that as, have you ever heard of this thing called Munchausen syndrome by proxy, where mothers are so mentally imbalanced that they literally make their children sick so that they can nurse them back to health and therefore look like they're a good mom or be the hero to their child? Okay, so that's what your ego's like. Your ego's going to create the problem only so it can do something to try to solve it to look like the hero. Here's an easy example of this. Say you're an AM radio. That's all you're ever going to pick up, AM radio frequencies. You'll never be able to get FM or XM or Sirius. But the problem is not with those frequencies. The problem was with the radio. You've got to update from AM if you want to start being able to receive those higher frequencies. They are beyond the reach of the AM receiver. So that's what you must work on. All right? So he's saying you are the radio. So it's not that if you're not picking up a higher frequency, it's not the frequency out here's fault. It's there. It's working. It's being transmitted. It's the radio that needs adjusting. Meditation helps with this because it allows you to listen and tune into higher frequencies than your mind and ego can understand on a mental level. All right, time out. So that's the beauty of the concept in my mind. You know, sometimes when we get into these new thought and we go beyond Christianity, we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But to me, that's the beauty of speaking in tongues. I came to that understanding. I quit speaking in tongues for a long time, and then one day I was just outside in my backyard meditating, and it just started coming, and it hit me. This is a way that you go beyond your mind because you're not understanding it on this level. It's something you don't have any clue, but you know something's happening, and it's that direct line that is bypassing your ego, that is bypassing your mind, and it is your spirit connecting with spirit. So that's why I kind of went back to that, and I appreciate it. So the Bible also talks about a peace that passes understanding. Your ego and your mind are always searching for something they can understand logically. Tuning into your higher self takes you beyond your mental understanding, and that's how you begin to clean up all of the magnets that are inside you. Now, here's where he puts an interesting spin on this concept. He says, once you clean up or dissolve or demagnetize the magnets inside you, the person or job or circumstance, etc., that was the external trigger may stay in your life. You may not be required to let them go. You just won't be codependent on them anymore. I love that. I read something the other day that really resonated with me. It said, when I am healed and whole, which for our purposes today means when I have cleaned up all my inner magnets that were created by my old egoic patterns, okay, when I am healed, whole, and complete, I am able to see you as healed, whole, and complete. We lack nothing alone, but we are stronger together. So when you can say that and truly mean it, then you know you have appropriately dealt with your codependency issues. When you can look at another person who you are in a relationship with, not necessarily romantic, it can be a friendship, your child, whoever. When you can look at somebody and say, I don't lack anything when I'm alone. Okay, in other words, I don't need you to complete me, no matter what Jerry Maguire says. I am complete and whole within myself, but I am stronger with you in my life. When we are together, we are stronger together. Okay, back to Kyle. He's going back to the example of us being an AM radio when we're stuck in our small self, in our egoic patterns. That's all the frequency we're able to pick up. And he's about to tell us how we can go beyond that and what happens when we do. Meditation, he says, is listening beyond what we understand. And when we do this long enough, when we just focus on the stillness and not on the issue, we create the capacity to become an FM radio or a satellite radio where we can start receiving and tuning in to those higher frequencies. And the more you meditate, the stronger your antenna becomes. In meditation, you will begin to hear God say, okay, I need you to let go of this. And the process of purging and clearing out all those magnets that have been keeping you stuck to the issues that trigger you begins to happen. And when you let go of whatever it is you're being asked to let go of, whether it's a person or a situation, you're not only letting go of that, you're also letting go of the part of you that created with that you created with that person or as a result of that situation. So there's always three entities. It's you, the person you're in a relationship, and then the relationship itself. So what he's saying is, once you clean up your magnets, you can still be in relationship with this person. It's not that, okay, you change, maybe they haven't changed, but what you are creating together is changing because you have changed. Okay. And again, remember, you can let go of the magnet, but the person can remain in your life, or you can remain in the same situation. You just won't be codependent on them anymore. Your entire relationship with them moves to a different level. You can let go of attachment to someone and stay married to them. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater like we talked about before. So, isn't that wonderful? Sometimes it's not the person or the particular job or situation that has to go. It's the old pattern you had with them. Once the nature of your relationship has changed from one of codependency to interdependence, then it is an entire new ballgame. So, again to the quote, we lack nothing alone, but are stronger together. I want to end with a short quote from Esther Hicks that further explains an idea that we just got from Kyle Cease, that this process of demagnetizing ourselves is something that we should let God handle. Our job is to become aware of the magnets and then turn them over to God. Let him do the healing. And then, as Esther says here, the nature of our magnets will change and we'll start attracting different things into our lives or attracting things in a whole different way. This is from a talk of hers called The Inevitability of Your Success. Motivation is negative stuff driving or pushing you forward, whereas inspiration is your true self, who you really are, gently calling you forward. So I like to do a visual of that, of just your egoic mental motivation of I'm going to do this, of grinding through it, of figuring it out. That's like somebody pushing you from behind. Inspiration, on the other hand, is that clear vision you see when everything is in balance, saying, you don't have to stay there. Come here. Okay, it's not a pushing from behind. It's just a gently calling and pulling forward. I love that. Your small self is not the one who gathers power and then manipulates it in order to make things happen. Your action is not what brings you the things you want. Your only action should be getting yourself into the appropriate vibration to receive. Okay? So not down in that lower animal nature like our cats, but up here where we trust God to always provide for us. It's the difference between feeling like you have to get out there and make things be the way you want them to be, and accomplishing the vibrational shift within yourself so that the law of attraction can then bring your shifted self the things you want. All right, beautiful. Thank you, Miss Esther. So, the next time you feel triggered, don't focus on the external cause. Look inside. Find the magnet. Become aware of it. And even if you can't identify what it is specifically, just know that it's there. The awareness alone will begin that something is inside you that brought that to you is enough to cause you to start shifting. Surrender it to the God inside you and allow it to be healed and cleaned up through the natural process that occurs when you spend time in meditation connecting to your higher self. And then watch as it begins to attract different things effortlessly. Amen? Amen. Let's stand and sing our ending song. Blessed always, blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say amen. Blessed always, blessed always, for the arms of God surround us. Let our joy be so triumphant that we rest in God and say amen. Amen. I didn't know how wonderful that song was going to fit. Yes, so that we rest in God and say amen. It's already handled. All right. Have a great week. I love you. Be at peace. We'll see you next time.